All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can see by the title and the thumbnail, this is 5 tips for people that are new to sobriety. If you're new here, welcome. Around 1989, I became involved in drugs and other illegal activities, and I would go on to be addicted and alcoholic until 2004 when I would finally get clean. I'm now coming up on 21 years of sobriety. And if I can do it, you can do it. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, drop a comment. And if I miss anything or you disagree with anything, then definitely drop a comment and let me know. This channel is for people that are in recovery or thinking about coming into recovery. So any tips or advice you can offer newcomers is definitely appreciated. So the 5 tips that I have for the newcomer or maybe somebody that's new into sobriety. The first one is, if you've been using or drinking or whatever it is that you do, and you've come to the conclusion that maybe you could use a little bit of help, find a meeting in your area. Okay, whether it be Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, whatever, your thing was. And what you want to do, what I would suggest, what worked for me was I did 30 meetings in 30 days, which went on to be 90 meetings in 90 days. But try to get to a meeting every day. It's not going to be the same meeting because a lot of meetings are like Tuesday night at 6 here, or they're all over the place, So get to check out some of the meetings that are in your area. There should be several of them, and figure out which meeting you like the best. It's going to be your home meeting, basically. And also what it's going to do is it's going to keep you occupied. You have something to look forward to during the day rather than getting high at 6 o'clock. I'm going to go to this meeting. And there's, if you're in bigger cities, there's meetings all hours of the day and night, some places. So figure that out, go to the meeting, talk to like the secretary or whoever, and find out, what days they offer the meeting. Some places, like the Alano Club in San Bernardino is a good example. They have meetings like almost every day of the week, sometimes multiple meetings per day. So that wasn't necessarily my home meeting, but that's just an example of how that can be. So you're checking out the scenery, basically, as far as where the meetings are. And you don't necessarily have to do NA if you were on drugs, or AA if you're on alcohol. They're interchangeable. Some Alcoholics Anonymous meetings tend to look down their nose a little bit at the drug addicts, but don't worry about that. Right now, those first 30 days, you're scouting out the territory. Which meetings do I like? Which meetings do I not like? Which one would I like to call my home meeting? And ultimately, you're looking for a sponsor anyway, so this is really good as far as getting started. Moving on to number 2. Now, when you're doing these meetings, a lot of these meetings are co-ed. Some are men only, some are women only, but a lot of them are going to be co-ed, which means if you are a man, there's going to be females there. If you're a woman, there are going to be males there. Don't get caught up in fraternizing with the opposite sex early in your recovery. The thing about this one is, now I didn't really have to worry too much about this one when I was early in my recovery because I was already married. I already had a wife at home, and, so it's not like I was looking for somebody, but a lot of times, you get a few days under your belt, you start feeling a few weeks under your belt, you start feeling a little bit better. You're feeling good about yourself, and, oh, look at those females, or look at those guys over there. Don't do this early in recovery. If you are married already, that's a whole different subject, and I'll get to that later on, so stick with me for that one. But the thing is, if you hook up with somebody of the opposite sex at one of these meetings, then you just reduced your chance of success by 50%, in my opinion. The reason I say that is you may be doing good, but now you may have a cosigner for your the reservation of a relapse. And what I mean by that is you're digging the female or the dude or whatever, you're digging the other person, right? And you're doing good, and you got a couple weeks under your belt, and hell yeah, I'm working with a sponsor and I'm doing all these things, and that other person calls you up and says, I want to go get high. Like, are you gonna say, well, let's go get a Momo and let's do this shit? Don't put yourself in that position where you need to make those types of decisions early in recovery. Okay? So, and that goes both ways. Like I said, if you're married, that's a different thing. But like I said, we'll get into that a little bit later on in the video. So now let's get to the third bit of advice I have. Now you're going to these meetings. You're not fraternizing, right? What you want to do is you want to listen. You want to listen. Don't get caught up in side conversations and shit like that. You're there for a purpose. You're there to get your life back together. These little sidebar conversations don't mean shit unless it's your sponsor you're talking to. And if it is your sponsor, they shouldn't be talking while there's a speaker up there speaking anyways. Go and listen. God gave you 2 ears and 2 eyes for a reason and only 1 mouth. Okay? Shut up and listen. And your objective here is you're looking for that person that's going to sponsor you. And basically all a sponsor is somebody that's going to walk you through those 12 steps of recovery. Okay? They're not a perfect person. Obviously, they had issues in the past as well, and that's why they're in the position to sponsor now, because they had some success in the program. Okay, so you're listening for that person that you can relate with. If you were a drug dealer like I was, and you hear somebody up there telling their story, and maybe whatever the circumstances are, but you can't relate, right? For me, like, I had to find somebody that was similar to me, somebody that was living that life and that was a drug dealer as well, because I can relate to that. So somebody that was just a small-time consumer, and maybe their story is, oh yeah, I was using a 1/4 gram on the weekend and I had to get clean. I can't relate to that. Maybe some people can. And some people are smarter than others and they figure it out a lot quicker. And shout out to them. But I wasn't that way. I had to keep banging my head before I said, damn, that hurts. Maybe I should do something about that. So, this takes us into tip number 4, which is find a sponsor. So 30 meetings, 30 days. Don't worry about the opposite sex. Listen and try to figure out who you would like to sponsor you. Now it's time to approach somebody to ask them to sponsor you. And this can be a little bit intimidating, right? Because chances are you're still in your first 30 to 60 days of recovery. You don't want to jump the gun too fast. You want to find somebody that you feel compatible with. And now you're going to approach them and say, hey, my name is Broken Bobby. I'm an addict. This is my story. I was wondering if you might want to sponsor me and help me work through these 12 steps of recovery. Okay? Now, there is always a chance that, they may say, I'm not able to do so right now, but I can lead you in the right direction of somebody that may be able to do that. Some people in recovery, they dive in so hard that they're sponsoring 6 dudes and they're leading 4 meetings and they're just overwhelmed. This is not the sponsor that you want. And a lot of times these people are very charismatic. They're having success. They've got years under their belt. And it's like, you're like, man, I really want to work with that person. But it doesn't always quite work out that way. Okay? But you definitely want to find somebody that you think you're compatible with, that you can work with on doing these 12 steps to recovery. And, chances are they're going to say, absolutely, I'd be glad to help you out with those. And then you start working the steps, right? Okay. So we've done all these things, right? 30 meetings, 30 days. Don't fraternize. Listen and try to figure out who you would like to approach about being your sponsor. Okay. Now, the last one is the most important one. Okay. So now you've achieved getting a sponsor, right? So this person is somebody that's going to walk you through these 12 steps of recovery. But this person is not, it isn't your God. It isn't, this is another person just like you are. And just because you've asked them to sponsor you, if at some point you don't feel like it's working out right, maybe they are a little bit too busy and they don't answer your calls when you need assistance, you're not tied to this person. You have no obligation. You don't have to pay them, or you're not on a contract or anything like that with them. And sometimes, like, I've heard stories, I follow some groups on Facebook, and someone said that it was a female talking, saying her boyfriend or her husband or whatever it was had gotten with a sponsor, and the sponsor said that he could no longer be in the relationship. It was with his wife, and they had a child for the first year. And she was asking advice about how she could be supportive and stuff. Now, if you are married and you get a sponsor and they tell you you can't be with your wife, in the circumstances, your wife is not using, your wife is not an alcoholic, your wife is just your wife, then you fire that sponsor. You tell them, you know what, hey, I appreciate what you've done for me, but I'm going to look for somebody new. Because they are not there to run your life. They are there to guide you in the right direction. And now, I'm not saying every time the sponsor tells you to do something you don't like, that you fire your sponsor. You have to take a look at yourself, and you have to be willing to accept input from another individual who hopefully is going to guide you down the right path to sobriety and not try to rule your world and all that stuff. Now, one thing I will say about a sponsor, if they tell you no new relationships in the first year, that's pretty solid advice. Now, 10, 11 months down the road, if you're in a good place and you find yourself falling into a relationship, then that's a different story. But like I said earlier about fraternizing, we don't want to get involved, especially with people at meetings. And not to take anything away from people at meetings, but you want to be responsible for your own ship. If you get in a relationship with a female or a male or whatever it may be, you get into a relationship with someone else at one of these meetings and you're in your first year and they decide they're going to go relapse, chances are you're going to go right along with them. You have to be responsible for you first and foremost, okay? And if you are married and your significant other is still using and refuses to quit and doesn't want to seek help, then that's something that you need to take a look at, because you don't want to be codependent on one another, where if I decide to relapse, we're relapsing. It's about me. It's selfish in the early part. And some of these decisions may be tough to make because you do care about that other person. Maybe you love that person. But, until you are clean and have a little time under your belt and are good, then you need to make decisions that are best for you and you only. It sounds a little harsh, but it's the reality of sobriety. Like I said, with that last tip, though, with the sponsor, you are not tied to that individual. Now, just because they tell you something you don't like, that doesn't mean you should fire them. I mean, that's up to you to make those decisions. But, coming from a perspective of being addicted or alcoholic, we don't like people telling us what to do. And even not from that perspective, a lot of people don't like people telling them what to do. So find a sponsor that's going to give you good suggestions on things to do that are going to help you make your life better. So 30 meetings, 30 days. Don't fraternize with the opposite sex. Listen and seek out that sponsor. And once you do have that sponsor, if the sponsor decides he's going to relapse or do something other stupid like that, that doesn't mean you have to go down with them. You are not necessarily tied to that sponsor. Hopefully you find a good one that's going to take you to the promised land. Anyways, that's my video for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Family, fitness, and freedom are the things that allow me to get my life together, and they can help you as well. Just remember, guys, it's all about the company that you keep. If you follow these 5 steps I gave you, you have a very good chance at succeeding in sobriety. And if you're new to sobriety, welcome. I believe in you. If I could do it, you could do it. I was addicted for a long time. Never thought I would get clean. And now here I am coming up on 21 years of sobriety. God is good. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you're new here, subscribe, hit that like button, drop a comment. Did I miss something? Did I get it right? What are your thoughts? Definitely pipe in the comments. It may help somebody. Also share the video. It may help somebody in finding recovery or continuing in recovery. And ultimately, that's the ultimate goal. So appreciate you watching. Don't look at the mountain. Just start climbing.